Hey, Algebra 2 Trig, we're going to finish up Chapter 8, and it's 8.8, Encoding and Decoding. And the essential question is, how do I encode and decode using matrices? Our example 1 is, use the matrix A to encode key ups. Okay, so key ups will be my message, and I'm going to encode it, which means I'm going to turn it into a bunch of numbers that has no meanings. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is I want to give you the code. So for each number, there's going to be a code, and please write that down. So write from 0 to 26, and each number will represent a letter, and each letter will represent a number. Okay. All right. So if I look at the conversion, I'm going to first assign a number to each letter. So K is 11, E is 5, Y is 25, U is 21, P is 16, and S is 19. Okay, so right now, this is my uncoded. These are my uncoded numbers because I can just literally take the numbers or letters and I can replace it and I can find my message, which is key ups. Well, now I'm going to encode it. So here's how I'm going to encode it. I'm going to multiply the uncoded matrix and I'm going to multiply it by the encoding matrix A, and that is going to, so I'm going to multiply it by my encoding matrix A, and that is going to give me my coded matrix. Okay, so my matrix A is going to be 1, 3, negative 1, 2, 7, negative 4, 2, 9, negative 7. Okay, and then I'm going to take 3 letters at a time because this is a 3 by 3 matrix. And I'm going to take the first 3 numbers, which is 11, 5, and 25. And I'm going to turn that into a 1 by 3 matrix. And if you look, these numbers are the same. So my final matrix will also be a 1 by 3 matrix. And that will be my coded matrix. So I'm going to multiply this by this matrix, and I'm going to come up with a coded matrix. Okay? So 11 times 1 is 11, plus 5 times 3 is 15. So 15 plus 11 is 26. And then 25 times negative 25 is negative 25. So it would be 26. So 26 plus 26 plus negative 25 is 1. Okay, so now I'm going to multiply this row by this column. So it will be 11 times 2 is 22 plus 35. 22 plus 35 is 57. Okay. And then 57 plus negative 100 is negative 43. Now I'm going to multiply by this row by this column. So it's going to be 11 times 2 is 22. 9 times 5 is 45. 45 plus 22 is 57 again. And then negative 7 is negative 175. So I'm going to write it off, write my little steps here, just because negative 175 plus 57. So that will give me 8. So it'll be negative 118. Okay. And then I still have 3 more letters to encode. Okay, so these are my first 3. These are my first 3 coded matrix. So I'm going to do the next 3. So my next 3 numbers are 21, seen, and 19. So 21, 16, and 19. And then I'm going to multiply it by the matrix, the same matrix, and end up with the rest of the coded message. Okay? So if I multiply that, it will give me, this one I might have to do some math on my calculator. Okay, so it would be 21 times 1 is 21. 16 times 3 is 48. And then 19 times negative 1 is negative 19. So it's 50. Then this row times this column, so it'll be 42 plus 16 times 7 is 112, plus 42 is 154. 154, and then 19 times negative 4 is 76. So 154 minus 76 is 78. Then the next one, 21 times 2 is 42. 16 times 9 is 144. So that's what. So if I add that up, that's 186, and then 186, and then 19 times 7 is negative 133. So it would be 53. Okay, so my coded matrix, these are my two coded matrix. So my final answer is going to be all 6 of the numbers in order. So it'll be 1, negative 43, negative 118, 50, 78, and 53. So this is called my cryptogram, which means this is my message that is coded, and then if I do decide to decode it, I would decode it and end up with the code key ups. But right now, if you wouldn't be able to look at this and know that it says key ups. Okay, so that's the encoding part. Now let's do the decoding part. So example 2. We're going to decode. A equals 1, 3, 2, 5. We're going to decode. The cryptogram, and let me give you the cryptogram. It's 11, 21, 64, 112, 25, 50, 29, 53, 23, 46, 40, 75, 55, and 92. Okay, so I'm going to decode that I'm going to decode this using the matrix A. Okay? So before we do that, we actually need to know how to find the inverse of a 2 by 2 matrix. So go ahead and write this down. The inverse of a 2 by 2 matrix. And the thing you have to remember is right here. So to find the inverse, I'm going to take my matrix A, and I'm going to do 1 over A times D minus B times C, which is that. And then I'm going to flip these two numbers and then take the opposite of the other two numbers. Okay? So first we have to find the inverse. So let's find the inverse. We're going to find A inverse. Okay, so this is the matrix A that's inverse. So it equals, so it was 1 over A times D, so that's 1 times 5, minus B times C, which is 2 times 3, times, and then I'm going to flip these two, so it's going to be 5 and 1, and then take the opposite of these two. Take the opposite of these two, which is -3 and -2. Okay, so my A inverse is going to be, well, this is 1 over, well, 5 minus 6 is -1, so this will be -1. So it'll be -1 times this. So I'm going to multiply, it's just matrix operation, so everything will be the opposite, because it'll be -1 times 5, which is -5, -1 times -2, which is +2, -1 times -3, which is +3, and -1 times 1, which is -1. So this is my A inverse. Okay, so now I am going to use the inverse to decode. Okay, so in order to decode it, I'm going to have the coded message, the coded matrix, I'm going to multiply it by A inverse, and that's going to give me the decoded matrix. Okay? So I'm going to take, since this is a 2 by 2, I'm only going to take two numbers at once. So A inverse is going to be -5, 3, 2, and -1. Well, the coded matrix, this is my coded matrix. I don't know what it is yet. So decode it, I need to take the first two numbers. So it'll be 11 and then 21. Okay, so that will give me my first two letters. And then, if I multiply it correctly, I should end up with a coded message. All right, so if I multiply it, this will be -55. This will be -55 plus 63, so that will give me 8. If I multiply this, it will be 22 plus -21, which is 1. So this will be my decoded matrix. And then essentially, I'm going to do that to every number. Okay, so once I do that to every number, it will give me a code. Okay, so if I go back, so the next one I'm going to do is the next two numbers. It'll be 64 and 112, and I'm going to multiply by A inverse. And the next one I'm going to do is, so I did 11, 21, 64, 112. The next one I'm going to do is 25 and 50. I don't want to repeat the process because it'll be just too tedious. But eventually I'm going to have all these numbers. I'm going to write it all out. So I'm going to write 8, 1, and then write all the rest of the numbers. And you will end up with a coded message. I mean, you'll end up decoding the message. And the message will say, well, I know I have to go back to that the variables. Okay, so I know 8 is H, 1 is A, and then let's see if you can decode the rest of it and see what you get as a answer. If you have any questions, that was a pretty tough lesson. Write it down. We'll answer it tomorrow.